All right, everybody, welcome to Thursday lunch. Welcome to Denver Rotary, folks. Thank you so much for being here. If you can all find a seat, and you don't necessarily have to sit down yet, because one of the first things that the first thing that we're going to do is actually stand back up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So can everybody hear me through this thing, or are you just hearing my voice? You can't hear it? Yeah. Check. Better? All right, cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And now you can all sit down. But we are going to be bringing up immediate past president Debbie Beasley, retired senior vice president and technology manager for here we go, for Wells Fargo's, with the inspirational moment. Thank you, Debbie.
Hello. Can you hear me? Is that too loud? What inspires me today is the wisdom and leadership of Rotary International when they announced a 7th area of focus. As you know, RI identified the original 6 areas of focus as promoting peace, fighting disease, providing clean water, sanitation, and hygiene, saving mothers and children, supporting education, and growing local economies. Now, the new 7th area of focus is protecting the environment. In a September 25th Global Citizen Live event led by Rotary International President-elect Jennifer Jones, it was announced that Rotary is pledging $97 million for sustainable projects. So what does that mean exactly? This Global Citizen event was a 24-hour broadcast with events and performances across 6 continents aimed to unite people to take action to defend the planet in the COVID-19 pandemic, defeat poverty, provide education for all children, and promote equity and justice for all. Not too much, right? At this event, the commitment also included the planting of 157 million trees and 60 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to be donated to developing countries. The 7th area of focus on protecting the environment is an opportunity for Rotary members to tackle environmental issues the way we always do, coming up with projects, using our connections to change policy and plan. Already, our club is identifying ways to engage. As Rotarians, we can take action in our everyday lives through what we eat, how we live, and where we pledge our time and money. So I thank our speaker today. I think it's so timely that we're talking about air pollution, and I thank Rotary International for their wisdom and leadership. Thanks.
And so thank you, Debbie. And now with the club secretary's report, we are going to bring up President-elect Lisa Gulias, land specialist with Velour Enterprises Incorporated. Lisa, come on up.
Everybody just needs to keep clapping. Guests, thank you, guests. Okay. Is there one? Only one guest? Lauren? Okay, all right, just looking. All right, so next week is the 2nd of the month, so don't forget to sign up for 6 breakout offerings during Alternative Week. So dates and times, locations vary. Reservations are required directly through each respective host. So with Matt, have a cigar and cocktail with President Ian. A Michael Moore makeup tutorial and discounts with Melly. That would be fun. Yeah. Learn about our new DRCF grantee, St. Francis Center with Bill Imig, and enjoy appetizers and cocktails with Shannon Stone. Or next month in November 11th, you can join me at the theater group. We're going to go see American Son at Curious Theater. So let me know. All right. We are proud to inform you that Club 31 was awarded the Rotary Citation for 20 to 2021.
We are proud to inform you that Club 31
Most
was awarded the
significant award a Rotary Club
Citation
can
for
achieve.
2021.
Thanks to Debbie Beasley, our
Most significant award a Rotary Club can
2021 leadership team, and so
Thanks
many
to Debbie
others
Beasley, our
who made it through
2021 leadership team.
COVID-19 demonstrated the camaraderie.
Made it
Well, it actually is one of the most critical awards
demonstrated
that you can get because our club met so many goals: membership, fundraising, service team.
Our club met so
Thanks
many
to
goals.
Debbie, she filed for it
Membership,
and we got it.
fundraising, service team. Thanks to Debbie, she filed.
Jokes. Why do mummies not want to take vacation? They're afraid to unwind. Thank you.
There's nothing like a good pun, man. I'll tell you. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate it. I am excited for Alt Week next week for all the different things we have going on. Melanie, I would join you at the makeup thing, but I woke up this way. So, like I said, nothing like a good pun, and that was not one. Now, up next, we are actually going to hear a little bit about one of our Alt Weeks next week from Bill. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Imig, one of the trustees of the Denver Rotary Club Foundation, a foundation that belongs to all of us. I want to alert you to a particularly timely program for next week. We've all noticed the homeless problem in Denver, with people spilling onto the streets and sidewalks. And I think we've all asked, what can be done about this? What is being done? Well, next week, we have a unique opportunity to learn about what's actually being done from the executive director of the St. Francis Center for the Homeless, which serves tens of thousands of people every year. This will take place at our regular meeting time, Thursday at noon, at the Cornerstone Residences, right around the corner from the St. Francis Day Center. And we'll offer free lunch from Pandora's. All you have to do is reserve with me or Sid Brooks today, and you'll get a free lunch next week. And we'll learn about insight into the 4 major initiatives that the St. Francis Center has. Its employment program, which last year found over 700 permanent full-time jobs for people. It's Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And now this is the my favorite part of any meeting. And I would like to ask Lasse Ladua and John Finnegan to come on up here. I mean, I know that that you just sat down to your salads, but you know. I am really excited to bring Lasse in today and welcome him into the club. But first, I want to give him a couple minutes to actually introduce himself. So Lasse, come on.
Nisambula. Nisambula Gunaka.
Yeah.
Lauren told me I only have 2 minutes, so I didn't want to prepare a speech. I'll cut it short. Back in 2009, I was watching a commercial TV back home in Fiji, and I see the Vodafone Foundation. And the next thing underneath that was the Denver Rotary. So fast forward, I moved into the US in 2014. I had the IT operation at this hotel. I work for the Warwick global chain. I'm based here in Denver. And I want to, I remember back in the day when the Rotary Foundation did a water project in Fiji. And I said, okay, when I came to Denver, it reminds me of that commercial that I saw on the TV, Vodafone Foundation and the Rotary. Then I saw the Denver name in there. So when I'm in Denver, I met John. And John said, I think you should join. I said, I think that's a good idea. So I made that commitment. I'm here today, and I'm really pleased and excited to join and serve the community as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So would you say that the Denver Rotary had some small part in actually bringing you to the United States? Is that what I'm hearing? One commercial, that's all it takes, right? Yeah, right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's, it's really an honor to bring you into the club. John told you from the get-go, hey, you should join, you should check this place out, right? And you did, and took the first step, and now you're taking the first step of the next iteration of that journey, because this club is really something special, and you've been invited and accepted to join, and we're excited to have you here. So the write-up is, we invite you to join, we invite you to get involved, we invite you to get engaged, but more importantly, like I like to say it, love first and figure out the start with that, and everything else is going to fall back into place. So truly, thank you so much for joining us, John. Thank you for bringing Lasse in, and fellow Rotarians, please stand and help me welcome our newest member, Lasse Ladua. Am I saying your last name right? Excellent. Thank you so much. Cheers. We're, Chris and the membership group or the attraction committee is just going to keep him coming. He took. That was not me. Not to assign blame, but no, but Chris and the membership, Chris told me that, the membership attraction is going to work on getting us to one new member introduction every meeting. Right. So, and you can see him smiling at me now. He's like, I'm going to kill you. But yeah, so, okay. On to next steps here. Good news bucket. Let's see, who do we have? Jim White, trustee. With DRCF.
Oh, I get my own microphone. Wonderful. Listen, again today, I talked to our executive director, and she doesn't trust you guys, so she's going to follow me around. And if you don't have cash to put in your good news, she's going to have her little credit card machine right there, and she'll catch you before you even sit down. So, but the first thing I want to do is tell everybody how excited that I am about being a trustee of our Denver Rotary Club Foundation. I have found out in the last several months that that's a group of people who are really dedicated to Rotary. They care about our activities, our organizations, and the money that we give away to the various organizations. So in honor of that, I'm going to put in $20 of my own, but I don't have the cash right now. But oh, geez. Oh, man.
I'll take you later. I'll trust you.
Put in the whole wallet. I'll get you in 1 minute. I will not forget this. But the rest of you, I'm not going to trust the rest of you. I'm going to accept two things today. Good news, of course, from you, and then at the dollar fee. And also, I'd like some of you to tell us a little bit about your companies, because we've decided to open up to give you a little bit of advertising. So who's going to be first for the red bucket? Here we go back here. Matt. Oh, I got my buckets. Okay.
You take the credit card first? I have some really good news. The nonprofit that I am the executive director of, Generation Exchange, is having our first event in almost 2 years at DU, coming up in about a month. We just got that planned. It's for those of you who have not been to a Generation Exchange workshop. What it is free technology help. So you are allowed to bring in any of your devices, any questions. We have some wonderful college student volunteers who are available to answer any question that you have. The cool part is that the twist is after the technology help, the roles actually switch, and these young adults are asking you for life advice, career advice, relationship advice, anything like that. So it's very much a mutually beneficial exchange, and that'll be coming up in about a month. And also, if you're interested, you should join us at bowling next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Would love to have any and all of you there. So thank you.
That's $40 worth. And then, you know what I'm going to do, Matt? I'm going to let you have, I'm going to give you a, what do you call it, an endorsement for another $20. I went to one of his meetings out there for Generation Exchange at DU, and I learned how to work my iPad. I learned how to work my cell phone. I didn't even know that the cell phone, made texts and stuff like that, but it's really a great organization. Thank you, man, for doing that. Who's next back here? There's Sid Brooks. Pardon? Oh, all right. I'll put in. How am I going to get back there? I need to squeeze through here. Here you go. I'll go around. Here's the money. Hey, Jim. All right, Jim.
Listen, you're getting informed about the foundation, the Denver Rotary Club Foundation, and that's for good reason, because we're really putting forth a strong effort. What we want to do is inform you as best as is possible what your foundation is doing. It is your money, and it is going to grantees throughout the city, and largely also partially throughout the state. And we think it's really, as I've said before, the heart and soul of this Rotary Club. And let me give you just 2 bits of example as to what we're doing and how we're doing it, and ask you to be attuned to what it is the foundation is doing. First of all, to punctuate what Bill so well said earlier, we're going to be going to the next Thursday, we're going to be going to the St. Francis Center. It's a homeless center. It does wonderful things. It helps all of those folks that are living out of tents up and down Colfax and various different places. And it's at 1001 Park Avenue West. It's a little bit hidden. 1001 Park Avenue West. Please sign up, contact Bill or contact me, and we'll have a free lunch for you. And we would appreciate that. And that's the beginning of an effort every month to inform you about another grantee. Second of all, Win Gandera, when you're here, aren't you? Raise your hand, would you, just for a minute? Thank you. Win and Community Resources, one of our grantees, just recently received a letter from an individual who was thanking Community Resources and Rotary for a life-changing mentorship that he had when he was, I think it was 11 years old. Is that right, Win? 11 years old. He sent a letter 30 years after he was in this mentorship that we support. And he is now a commander aviator in the Navy. And he attributes his life-changing successes to community resources and to Rotary. And here it is 30 years later. So keep that in mind. Even though we don't see our results all the time, it's there. And so thank you very much. And you got my $20.
Thank you, Sid. You know, Sid's my boss, but I'm gonna still have to fine you an extra $10, Sid. You talked too long. But Andre's over here and he's got $20 in his hand.
Well, I don't know if Carter Sales, Carter, are you here? But I want to thank him and the whole Woohumanity effort, because I think it was so awesome to ride all over Denver and see so many Rotarians. And I also want to welcome our newest member. I also started my Rotary career because the Rotary met at the hotel I ran in Burlington, Vermont. That was 30 years ago. So welcome.
Thank you, Andre. And here's Melanie. I can't seem to move too far. Melanie,
Okay.
you got the cash?
I got the cash right here. You bet.
Rob Clinton, happy birthday today. And it's Marlene's birthday today too. So I want all of us to wish him a happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Melanie. I saw some hands over there. Here we go. Our past president, Debbie.
I'm thankful for this wonderful shirt I have, thanks to Jim White. And also I'm a retired executive in technology at Wells Fargo, and I have participated in Matt Isola's Generation Exchange and hope to do it in November. So join me. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Debbie. Wonderful. Here we go over here. Peter.
Thank you. So my son graduated in June and he's been looking for a job for the last 3 months and he got a job yesterday. Oh, there's your $20.
You better put in $40 if he's got the job. You don't have to support him anymore. No, that's okay.
There's another 20. There you go.
First of all, I hope we can get Sid to develop some enthusiasm for the foundation. I'd like to use my couple of seconds here to promote our program on November 18th. We will have General Mark Schwartz, who is currently posted in Jerusalem, and I'll say in a moment what he does, but this is really a great find, I think, and be a great program. His topic is going to be something you wouldn't expect. It is going to be mentoring successful women in male-dominated organizations. He spent his whole career in the U.S. Army, and he is the person who is responsible for all of the military liaison roles between the United States and Israel and the Palestinian Authority. He's a 3-star general. So November 18th, mark your calendar to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I've only got time for one more. I see several hands. This is going to go to the highest bidder. Let's see.
We just have 2 granddaughters and they're both starting new schools. The oldest is starting college and is loving it and got into the sorority she wanted to and is very happy. The youngest is starting high school and her passion is mountain bike racing and she's been coming in first or second in all the races. So we're happy that they're happy.
Thank you, Mitch. You know, my second boss cut me off, but I'm going to take one more over here because this guy looks like he's got a lot of big pockets down there. Here we go.
Well, it's $50 and it's to say thank you to one of our members, Julie Freshman. And, you know, obviously I made Medicare decisions long ago, but I had a reason to come back and review. And she is just incredibly helpful in that regard. And so I'm thanking Julie.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for your contributions to our own Denver Rotary Club Foundation. I'm going to give this microphone back to Ian.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And man, these things have gotten a lot more vibrant recently. So I'd say it's been a lot of fun. You want to turn this down? I want to turn it off. All right. And are we back on here? Wonderful. All right. And so now with that, I am excited to bring up Mr. Rick Luthold, Club Board Director, Meetings and Events VP, and Chairman of Sanderson Stewart. Introduce our speaker. Come on up.
Thank you, President Ian. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Good to see you all here on this beautiful day. We all know what it's like to have the clear blue skies of Colorado and see those mountains out to the west. And we know sometimes that's impinged upon by just the typical smog we get year over year over year, and people driving and winter inversions, and that gets tough. And the last couple of years, the wildfires have made them invisible to us. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it really bothers us when it does. And some of you, I am not bothered by it as much, but I know a lot of folks, my wife included, just the particulate in the air causes her extreme difficulties breathing. And it can be very harmful to some. It can be potentially deadly to a lot. But we have it so good in Denver, Colorado. There are places in the world that have it extremely bad, and it's there all the time. And it's driven by man in most cases. And again, causes a lot of people a lot of problem. So as we were looking on the programs committee at something to talk about and all of the various relevant things that are happening in the world today, we were made aware of Dr. John Samet. And he is an epidemiologist, pulmonary physician, dean of the Colorado School of Public Health. And they said, I'm sure we can find something in his background that he can talk about. And we talked about COVID, we talked about various different things, and it came down. I had the opportunity actually to be the one to call Dr. Samet and say, what's current? What would you like to talk about? And I rattled off a list of things. He said, well, I could talk about this, I could talk about that, I could do this. And not just at your friendly neighborhood garage discussion level. I mean, kudos to Dr. Samet. He gives back to the world at the local level, the national level, the global level, serves on, and you can read it in your Rotary email that comes out, but more boards and committees, and has chaired them, has sat on them, has directed them, advised people throughout the entire country on these matters. And it's a real pleasure, a real honor to have him here today. And the thing we touched upon was this air pollutant issue and how it's impacting us now and how it's going to impact us in the future. So with that, I would like to ask Dr. Samet to the podium, and anxious to hear what you got to say.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Rick, for a very nice introduction. I'm glad to be here. Actually, in reflecting, I think this is the first time I've talked to a live audience since the first week of March 2020, instead of lots of little squares on a computer screen or unknown numbers of people. I actually put together a workshop for the National Academies about a year ago on airborne transmission of SARS-CoV-2, which was and remains a hot topic. We had 15,000 different people participate in the workshop. So it's amazing what we can do. It's nice to see faces. So thank you for being here. And I was pleased to hear about your new goal related to the environment. What could be more timely? I wandered into my career sort of driven by the environmental disasters I saw in the 60s when I was sort of setting my sights on what I might want to do. We've solved some of those things, but clearly other problems keep emerging. I want to start with a thanks, I hope, to the Rotary clubs. And we've, as a school, received a lot of help from the Rotary clubs, particularly for our activities in global health. And your support has been valuable to our school, to our Center for Global Health, and I'm sure had amplified benefits in the many sites around the world where our faculty, staff, and students are working. I'm going to say a few words about the Colorado School of Public Health. We're a little bit unique. So when I came here and started going to events, people would say, what do you do? And I'd say, well, I'm the dean of the Colorado School of Public Health. And for those of you outside of academia, go like, what does the dean do? Everything is the answer. But then it came down to, well, what's public health? Don't have to answer that one anymore. And less about what is the Colorado School of Public Health. And I'm going to say a little bit about us. We're unique because we're a collaborative school. So my office sits over at the Anschutz campus. We're part of the University of Colorado. We have an undergrad program collaboratively at UC Denver, and we have full programs both at CSU and UNC. So we actually are the Colorado School of Public Health and not the University of Colorado School of Public Health. So we benefit the state, and I think it was a wise way to go when we got started. We have a lot of students, we're probably at about 700 right now at all levels, not counting our undergraduates, and probably heading for about 200 faculty, depend on how they're counted. We have been rising up the rankings of schools of public health, whatever that means, but we like it. And we're hit the top 20 this year. And we have a lot of reach across the state and nationally and globally. Oops, keep losing this. We have various degrees. The core degree, one that will get you a good job in a health department, running a health department, is the Master of Public Health degree, sort of the basic starting point. And it's a terminal professional degree. So people can come to the school for 2 years and go out and work. And our graduates are all over the state and all over the country at this point. Our research is expansive. We run about $30 million a year of research budget, not counting an additional, say, 10 million at CSU. So we are an economic engine in research, and our research touches on things that are important for the state. Let's see. So we also have extensive reach and engagement with the state. And I'll raise one example. Shortly after the pandemic hit the state, we put together a infectious disease modeling group that I lead that has been right there on the front lines of modeling the epidemic on a essentially weekly basis when that was necessary, and working with CDPHE and the governor's team on a regular and sustained basis. So it's been a great relationship and exactly what we should be doing. So with that introduction, I'm going to really go fast through a lot of air pollution stuff at sort of the highest level and compress a lot of things. So everybody has to take a breath, deep one. Very good, know how to breathe. So this is a comment. You probably took in about 2 quarts, 2 liters of air. Okay, and we do that, 15 times a minute times so many minutes and so on. And the total is a lot. So, we look out at the air and say, well, it looks pretty clear today, or in this room, but there's stuff here, there's gases, there's particles. And with all those breaths, we take in plenty of materials for our lungs to deal with. And we do that in many different environments. So 10,000 liters of air, our breaths. And if we go outside and exercise, walk hard, we breathe in more. So when we look at where we take these breaths, indoors, actually this morning, there was a national public radio story about gas stoves, which emit nitrogen oxides, just like the tailpipe of vehicles. So indoors, we're exposed to stuff. A global problem, so-called household air pollution from combustion of biomass fuels, a huge problem globally, and one I suspect that Rotary clubs are supporting activities related to this problem that still affects billions. Outdoors, smoke, mines, underground. This is actually an underground uranium mine that I visited when I was in New Mexico and studying the problems of uranium miners many, many years ago. I'll leave it at that. Our roadways, and then of course these rising mega cities. And for those of you who have been to, name it, Beijing, Guangzhou, Delhi, the pollution can just be extraordinary and is a real risk to people who are there. What's our power plants and so on. Don't worry about this. There's a lot of chemistry here, no test, but this is about particles. And you hear a lot about particles. You've probably heard about PM 2.5. That's a particular size of particles that EPA regulates. And these particles are formed from all those sources on the left: cooking, agriculture, nature contributes. Desert dust in some parts of the world is a big problem. And all of those get transformed into this PM 2.5, which is something that the EPA regulates. So part of our problem in addressing air pollution is looking at all these different sources, and so many of them, as you know, they're just part of the fabric of our lives and our economies. So the main pollutants, the big guys that EPA regulates: PM, particulate matter; ozone, which is an emerging problem here, we'll talk about; nitrogen dioxides; sulfur dioxide, not so much of a problem anymore. We've pretty much gotten rid of sulfur containing fuels in the US. Biggest source of SO2? Any guesses? Well, good one. Nature, volcanoes. Okay, volcanoes, biggest source globally. And of course, carbon monoxide used to be a big problem in this part of the country. And one of the first times I was in Denver was about 1980, 81. Senator Hart did a commission review on the problem of carbon monoxide at high altitude. And luckily, with our catalytic converters and other changes, we have far less of a carbon monoxide problem than before. So I've sort of divided things up here a little bit. Old problems: air pollution kills. And let's see, I just jumped. We began to focus our attention on air pollution when we had a number of inescapably bad disasters. The London fog of 1952, that's a picture of London in the daytime there at the bottom. The death rate soared, and probably 10 to 20,000 people were killed. And this was the kind of bodies piling up situation. It affected the young, babies, newborns, and affected the elderly. And this was a huge wake-up call. In the United States, we had Denora, Pennsylvania, where again, far smaller place, but another body count. And after that began waves of research and efforts to control. And when I started doing research on air pollution, mid-70s, we were really just beginning to do the kinds of studies that were telling us what the risks were and pointing at the sources that we needed to control. So a summary of about 80 years of research right here. What have we learned? Air pollution still kills. And part of our problem is the better our studies get, the more we extend down to lower and lower levels, the fact that air pollution is risky. So it increases mortality for the short term and long term, clearly affects the heart and lungs. It affects children with asthma, adults with COPD. We're finding out about effects on reproduction. Brain aging seems to accelerate it. Who wants that? And we know that there are many susceptible populations. Just to show you part of our problem, here's a plot from a huge study. And this is the risk of dying. You would like it to be at 1. That means no excess risk. But our challenge is that those relationship extends down to the lowest levels that we have. So one of the quandaries in setting air pollution standards is, gee, how low do we want to go? I shared a group for WHO about 10 years ago. We said air pollution causes lung cancer. Big surprise, air pollution is full of carcinogens. There's no safe level for these carcinogens, just like there's, say, no safe level for secondhand smoke. So in the US, we have the Clean Air Act. And I will say that for these major pollutants, the Clean Air Act has been a success. Our pollution levels have lowered, as I've said. This is from Time magazine in 1997, when Carol Browner, then administrator, set the PM 2.5 standard. The first time we had a standard for these small particles. I sat through a couple of years of reviews of this evidence when it was set. So the good news side, do I have to spend money if I say good news, or am I okay? I figured. But if you look, our air pollution levels, our emissions have gone down, populations have gone up, vehicle miles travel, there's the pandemic effect. You can see at the end on our vehicle miles travel, they've certainly hooked back up. But if we look at what's happened to the air pollutants, these big ones I was talking about, they've by and large gone down. Okay, the one that really drops there is lead, which of course lead and gasoline is long gone. Ozone, the green line, is drifting along, and we're not doing as well with ozone. So that's a picture of where we are with these bigger pollutants. Now, there's always new problems, and one is just an increasing recognition that traffic-related pollution itself seems to be a big problem, particularly for those people who are living right near the major roadways. I came here from Los Angeles after 9 years at USC. And for those of you who know downtown Los Angeles, they're building apartment buildings within 50 yards probably of the 110 freeway, which is misnomered as the 110 parking lot. I mean, there's just people with porches overlooking the 110. And this is a problem. So this is one. And we're looking at ways to think about this. The wildfire smoke story is certainly one that has affected us and gets tied back up into climate change. And I think, you know, all of these intersect. I took this picture in Boulder at Twin Lakes. That beautiful black stuff back there is from the Cameron fire and just reflected in the lake. Here's the smoke plume moving into my neighborhood. And this is the station fire, which took place in LA while I was there. So we know this is a huge problem. About a year ago with colleagues internationally, we published this paper on the problem, the emerging global problem of wildfire smoke. You know, we've had Siberia on fire, Greece on fire, certainly the United States. It's happening everywhere, more and more and more. And you know, wildfire smoke is clearly it's particles, it's gases, it moves. I'm going to show you some of those pictures. You know, it's irritating when it's there, certainly cuts down visibility, and it has carcinogens, it has irritants and so on. And a lot of research going on to try and sort that out. One thing that is clear is that under different climate change scenarios, sort of going down, getting worse, the number of fires goes up, as does the length of the wildfire season. And certainly we've just seen that in the recent, if you look back 2 decades ago, we weren't talking about wildfires as we are now. It's really a change that has come. The smoke travels. Here's August 14th, the smoke map. And you'll remember that in Denver, we had really bad air quality because of fires in California, right? So this stuff spreads. We know it's there. Here's a smoke map in September. And of course, the potential to have these wildfires is really quite variable. And this is just a map of the wildfire potential. The West and certainly in our area are at risk. If you look at the EPA fourth climate assessment that was published about a year ago, for this part of the country, drought, wildfires are right at the top of the list of the impacts that we'll experience. You know, and over time, by season, this changes. So you can see the shift now to the east coast of the red and what might be ahead in November. So this is a new problem and certainly on the emerging problems list. So let's move on a little bit to Colorado. Denver, famous for its brown cloud. I spent the first 18 years of my career in Albuquerque, very similar to here, sitting at a high plateau, mountains. We used to have tremendous problems with wood smoke from burning, and a very thick inversion of wood smoke sitting over the city in the winter months. I think a lot of the same early brown cloud here when there was wood burning and we didn't have the better stoves, probably part of the problem here, of course, along with the problem of growth, which I'll come to. This is early on a commentary about what we know, and a lot of science has been done here. We have very good researchers, very good atmospheric scientists, a lot of people looking at the wildfire smoke. I think we face particular challenges now here, and I will put this slide up as part of our problem, more and more of us. And if you look to the right, this is intercensal growth essentially in the region. I think we all know that the Front Range communities are booming. My first time in Colorado, driving to Boulder in 1980, prairie all the way, long gone, right? And I think many of you have seen that change. Vehicle miles traveled, the blue, also going up in absolute terms. So we have more of us, we are polluters, our vehicles are polluters, and they contribute ozone precursors. So ozone, the nitrogen oxides out of the tailpipe, the hydrocarbons are an important source. And then, of course, unconventional oil and natural gas extraction or fracking. And the scope of the industry is, of course, huge. And again, just these are maps of the site, 2018 along the Front Range, statewide in 2020. And I don't know the exact count in Weld County of wells. I think the last I saw was 20,000, 25,000. So with fugitive emissions, these are also good precursors for ozone. So if we take a look at what is of concern right now, a lot of press about ozone. And one thing about getting warmer, the chemistry is simple. The warmer we are, the warmer the atmosphere is, the more ozone is generated. So that's one problem with temperature increase. So again, lots of attention to this. So here is an ozone levels at one particular station out at Rocky Flats. And put on the top line is the current EPA standard. This is the 8-hour standard. The bottom line is the just released World Health Organization guideline. So pick your line. We're going above it. So either way, and this is, there's seasonal, of course, ozone goes down during the winter. You can see this last summer as we've moved in that we had those high ozone days. And here's particles. And if you remember, this is our fire smoke right here coming in and raising the particle levels a lot. So again, we're exceeding the EPA standard. The WHO guideline is very low, and it's a guideline. It's not a US standard. So we have problems. And just last to close, just a reminder of what a problem air pollution is globally. So a huge contributor to premature death and disease. So 4.4 million deaths a year estimated to be attributable to outdoor air pollution. Calculations are complicated. Another couple of million from this problem of indoor air pollution. And you can see the different causes of death that air pollution reaches to. This is the problem of household air pollution. And these are examples of people cooking indoors. This varies widely across the world. I've been in smoky huts all over Africa and South America. And, again, we have people exposed to very high levels of indoor air pollution, sometimes the children directly in the plumes. So lots of work to do there. These new WHO air quality guidelines highlight the problem of outdoor air pollution and achieving safety for all. I actually spent 5 years of countless meetings working on these guidelines along with the last batch, and we continue to lower from 2005 to 2021 as the science has gotten better. We just keep learning more and more about these risks. So air pollution remains a huge problem, and some of this problem, the household air pollution, for example, feeds right into the release of carbon and climate change. So here's a comment from Tedros, the WHO director, about these new guidelines. They have huge impact globally, so an important step. So I'm going to stop here, and I think I'm actually on time, leaving time for questions, and I hope you'll have a lot because I covered an awful lot of territory, and thanks for your attention.
Get you behind that microphone so you can listen to Roland.
Thank you, Dr. Samet. What did I tell you? The guy is impressive. But first question off here is, we have this huge problem and we're doing everything we can to minimize it, mitigate it, that kind of thing. But a lot of what's happening in society, particularly right here on the Front Range, like you said, we're in an extreme growth mode. Suburbs are growing. People can't afford to live downtown. They can't afford to live in the apartments we build, that kind of thing. So they're moving 5 miles out, 10 miles out, 15 miles out, which is just the opposite direction of what sounds to me one of the major polluters is that auto traffic that's going on there. So any suggestions with yourself or any of these committees about how to stem some of that?
Yeah, so I mean, a great point. And of course, look at Los Angeles, where I was, where you have people driving 40, 50, 60 miles in on these massive commutes. Part of the problem does lie in how we structure our towns, our communities, and the availability of public transportation. These are long-term problems. And I think the question will come, and I mean, this is obviously in the minds of our community leaders and transportation planners and urban designers. People know this. And I think the question, there are really two parts of it. Once we've done it, how do we make it better? And how do we avoid making it worse in the future? From the standpoint of EPA and the Clean Air Act, if we are in non-compliance, which Denver has been from time to time, we have to do something about it. And the state has to put in together an implementation plan that would begin to address this. I suspect that for the shorter term, the move to electric vehicles may make a huge difference and start to deal with the tailpipe emissions, and that will help. Clearly, electricity is going to be generated somewhere, and whatever we're doing, at least for now, is probably going to involve some mix of sustainable and combustion-related power generation. So it moves the problem away. It doesn't solve it in the end. So I think we'll have to see what happens on the EPA side and where we go, particularly with the ozone, which is really a rising problem. It's not just here. I mean, it's Salt Lake City, it's other places. Of course, ozone was first identified in Southern California, where it remains a problem. It's bad. It's just not bad as bad as it used to be. So, we could go on and on about this, but I think this is a big problem. It took a long time for us to get where we are, and it's going to take a lot of different solutions to reverse things.
You kind of alluded to this, but does the transition to electric cars, does the reduction in tailpipe emissions offset by the increase in power plant emissions? Really know yet?
Yeah, somebody must have done it. It's a great question, and I'm sure somebody has done the analysis somewhere. I suspect that in terms of generating air pollution, probably far less impact, but the question of carbon emissions would be a different one, and I'm not sure how the numbers add up.
Two-part question. Number one is, can you see legislation forbidding gas hookups to new home construction? And two, in Asia, we see a lot of people wearing these all the time. We had the lowest incidence of common flu last winter because of wearing these. So you see that in the near future, we're going to be wearing these a lot more, or any other thoughts?
That's two questions, not a two-part question. Let's see. So on the first question, no, actually, it's really interesting. So one of my first very large studies was a study of indoor air pollution from gas cooking stoves and respiratory illness in children. We made literally probably 100,000 measurements of nitrogen dioxide indoors. And one change that has happened, of course, that stoves with continuously burning pilot lights are no longer allowed. I think on the piece I heard this morning, so timely, was I think it was California that was moving to prohibit new gas stoves indoors. It's about 25% of indoor stoves and ranges are gas. We may, it wouldn't surprise me if some states start heading in that direction. The US EPA has no authority over indoor air, essentially. So there's no path for EPA to regulate indoor air pollution. So I would say stay tuned. On these, School of Public Health, the story is really, really complicated. And I suspect that they will become much more something regular. Now, these barrier face coverings, that would be the official thing you would call this, are very good for protecting others. Okay, so the droplets, the stuff you cough and sneeze, the liquid stuff that transmits things, these protect others. And that's the reason to wear them. They give you a little bit of protection. Okay, not great, depending on what they are against these, against the fine particles in the air. So I think it's an interesting question. Certainly in Asia, in the times I've been working in Asia, which is now a long time, these are very commonly used and people use them on the streets for pollution and infection, and they help. So, perhaps they will. And you're right. We didn't see a lot of viruses over the last year until this summer because all the infection control measures we were taking made a difference.
Yes, thank you. Going back to ozone, we can't see it, we can't taste it, we don't know it's there. What are the effects on the human bodies of the ozone and the levels of it, and how do we know when we're being affected?
Sure. So one correction. Carbon monoxide is odorless and visible. Ozone is irritating. So if you're actually in high levels of ozone, it's really ozone is the indicator of this sort of broader level of photochemical pollutants. But for those of you who remember LA 30 years ago, and you visited, you sort of were seeing mountains and it was kind of nice, and then you went into a cloud. And as you did that, your eyes might burn and your throat felt irritated. Ozone is an immediate irritant. And for those who are not acclimated to it, you're in it. And there were times in LA when it was still like that. One of its most immediate effects is that some people are very sensitive to it, and it causes a transient drop in lung function. Typically not enough to make a difference, but when people talk to me about, say, going for a long run at midday and the ozone is high, the answer is no. We've linked ozone to irritation, to worsening of asthma. It's also been linked to this problem of increased risk of dying, particularly those who are more vulnerable, older, have underlying heart and lung disease. So there's a vast literature on ozone, and a lot of that literature comes from studies where volunteers breathed in ozone and then had their lungs looked at. It clearly inflames the lung. So there's a substantial body of data. And again, part of the problem in regulating ozone and assuring safety is that some people are clearly susceptible to it, even at levels that we are below our current regulatory standard. And certainly on some of our high days here in Denver, there are people who are affected.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Samet. We appreciate you being here. And excuse me, in honor of your presence here today, we're going to be making a donation to our polio efforts, and combined with a 2-to-1 match from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, 100 children will be inoculated against polio. Thank you again. All right, Lassa, John, if you would go and stand over by the door so that everybody can egg you on the way. I mean, shake your hand on the way out. Next week, keep in mind that we are doing Alt Week. So take a look at what's going on. Check out the email that's going to be coming out here, and be sure to register. These always end up being a good time. So make sure to come and check us out, and bring guests too. Right, these Alt Weeks are great opportunities to bring guests, because they're casual things that you can do with other Rotarians and just have a good time. So with that, let's wrap with the 4-way test here. So of the things that we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will build goodwill and better friendships? Will be beneficial to all concerned? And with that, meeting adjourned. Have a great week.